Hi guys, this is Rohan, and this is the first video in a series of videos that I'm going to be releasing to you guys. And we're going to be covering Swift and iOS concepts. And this curriculum is going to be modeled after a released lesson plans by Apple. So it's going to make sure that it goes over very important topics. So in this first video, we're going to be going over print statements and variables, just the real basic stuff, just to start with. And so to start with, I'm going to make an Xcode project. See, I have Xcode open here, and to make a new project, I hit Command-Shift-N, and that prompts me to create a new project here, and you'd probably start out here. So, but for today, we're not going to be making an app because we're just going to be learning the beginnings of Swift. So, so what we do is just for so we can run our Swift on its own, we can click on Mac OS over here and go ahead and click Command Line Tool to create, and this will create a project that just runs on code. There's no app, and it'll run on your computer. Won't do much else. So you can name this whatever you want, but I'm gonna be naming this project Space Adventure because, as you'll figure out soon, we're gonna be our learning through a series of uh, lessons based around this concept of a space adventure. So it's kind of interesting. And this stuff doesn't matter. You can you can just call it whatever you want. But the general uh, thing to say here is maybe like the name of your company, followed by the reverse domain of your company's website. So you would say, let's say my company was called Videos and we owned videos.com. So we would say com.videos. So, and make sure to click Swift as your language. So, it knows to create the project in Swift because that's what we're going to be doing with these videos. And you can go ahead and leave team as anything you want, or you can leave it empty if in case, but if you've already created a team, you can go ahead and click on your team. So click next and it'll create your project. You can create it wherever you want, that's up to you. But so as you've noticed, it would have created something like this, and I called mine Space Adventure, so it says Space Adventure here. But what's important is this main.swift file, and this is where it will be running, and the computer will compile this and run this. So if I go ahead and hit Command R, which is the same thing as hitting this play button over here, our code in here will execute. So, so this is running, and it says hello world over here because we printed here, which we were going to learn what it is, and we printed it to the console. This is the console in this section. And so that's the first thing we're going to do. So if you see this here, something worked out well, and if not, you probably might want to restart. But so this is just pretty simple. So this first thing first concept basically is a print statement. So this will, it's not really that useful for an app, but it's useful for the developers making the app because it can help you debug and print stuff out to the console over here whenever you need to. So in this case, we printed hello world inside two quotation marks, which means this is a string. So we're going to learn a bit more about what a string is later, but you'll notice that if you say this to, if you change this to something else, it will, and you run it again using Command R or the play button up here, you'll see that it prints out something else. So right here. So we got that. So that's a print statement, and you can print out lots of things, but in this case, we printed out a string, which we're going to learn now. So to declare so we're going to learn about variables first because that'll help us understand what's going on here. So if we we're going to start out by, so this is how you declare a variable in Swift with the three letters var, and you put it before the name of your variable. So we're theming this around a space adventure, so let's call this var number of planets. And so this is the name of our variable. Notice I started out with a lowercase n and then went to a capital O when we changed words and capital P when we changed words again. So this is known as camel case. So, and it's generally the convention for Swift variable names. So we follow the name of the variable with an equal sign, and the equal sign is telling us that we want to assign it to something. But actually, first of all, we want to let Swift know that we're going to write an int, which is an integer, like a number, a whole number. So that's a data type. And what we did here is an annotation, because this part is the annotation, because we let Swift know that we're going to write an int. And so in our solar system, there are 8 planets, so we're going to say 8. So you notice here, so we declare this to number of planets, variable name, to 8, an integer. But something about Swift is that you don't actually have to tell it variable names when you declare a variable. It'll actually be able to infer from your data type over here that your variable is of that data type. So we can actually go ahead and get rid of this, and you see no problem, it works. And we used var to declare a variable because we can change it later. Like if the number of sorry. So if the number of planets in our solar system eventually becomes something else, like 9, we can declare sorry, I was coughing. Okay, so if our number of planets ever changes to something else, we can change it like this, saying number of planets equals 9. So this is reassigning the variable, and we didn't have to say var again because we don't have to declare it anymore. Swift already knows that number of planets is a variable because we created it up here with var, but when we access it later, we don't have to. So, but in this case, our number of planets will never change, so we don't have to deal with that right now with changing variables. And because this is something that will never change, or maybe in the far, far future it might, but it's never going to change in our program. So we can replace this var with let. And so this let means that Swift is that it lets Swift know that we're making a constant, something that's not going to change. Like if you've ever done Java or something, it would be something like final int x, something like that. You would use the keyword final. So, but in Swift, it's let number of planets equals 8, because remember, number of planets is our variable name. Okay, so now we have this variable, and let's go ahead and make another variable. And in this case, we're gonna do var diameter of Earth, and this time we're gonna make a float, so you can this is a float until we let Swift know. We actually don't need to do this, if you remember, so we can actually take this out. And by the way, a float is a floating point number, which means that it's some sort of decimal. It can be it could be a whole number, but it would be like 3.0. That's a float. So if we go on, so in fact in miles, the diameter of the Earth is 24,859.82 miles. So this might look like a silly number coming out of nowhere, like how did we figure it out? So if anyone's ever reading our code, we can put a comment here saying this is in miles, And then for more specification, we can say from pole to pole. And so this is a comment. So what you do after these two double slashes is completely ignored by the compiler. It doesn't matter. The computer doesn't even know it's there. It's completely ignored, and you can type whatever you want in here. So this is usually used by programmers to let other people reading their code, or when they return to their code, that this is in miles, so we won't be confused later. And if you remember, we actually want to, the diameter of the Earth isn't really changing much, so we can leave this as let, because it's never going to change. And so the last thing for this video that we want to do is print out the values of these variables, actually in this case constants. And so, but the first thing is, right now we're saying hello viewers, maybe because this is a space adventure, maybe we want to say welcome to our solar system. So that'll give it a better feel. And we can let them know there are 8 planets to explore. But didn't we already set this 8 in number of planets? So in this case, we can actually use the constant number of planets in our string. This would work whether it's a constant or a variable. And to put a variable inside a string, you use what's called string interpolation. That's a fancy word for just putting something in between something. So in this case, we want to put number of planets in this point in the string. So if we say number of planets, then it'll know to put number of planets over here. And so here we'll talk about the syntax now. So we're in a string right now, but as we go here, we want to let the compiler know that we're going into it's not a string anymore. We're going into like a variable land. So anything you do in here is evaluated as code, and then anything you type outside is evaluated as a string. So if we didn't type these parentheses and backslash over here, remember this is a backslash, not a forward slash. So if we didn't type that, it would say number of planets, like number, blah, blah, blah. It'll print that out. So if we run this using Command R or this play button right here, Command R is probably better to get used to, but so you see here that now it's printing there are 8 planets to explore. So that's because we interpolated the string with this value. So if we actually take this out, like I was saying before, let's see what this prints out. So now it says there are a number of planets to explore. So that's probably not what we want to tell our user. So we want to return it to this because we want to put the variable 8, the variable number of planets with value 8 here instead, because we want to say how many planets there are. So that's that's printing out the value of number of planets. And so last thing we want to do is we can print the diameter of the Earth. But since the user of our program is being welcomed to our solar system, so first we have to tell them that they're starting at Earth. So we can say you are currently on Earth, which has a diameter of, and then remember we interpolate our variable by doing this. Okay, so we see this here, and we know this is in miles, so when we run this, it'll give us this number, this float over here, and it'll print it out. So it'll say you are currently on Earth, which has a diameter of blah blah blah. But we specified that it was miles here, but how does the user know that it's miles? In fact, the user doesn't see this comment at all, just the programmers. So we want to add to our string miles, just to let them know. So this is string interpolation, the basics of print statements and variables, and this time we only made constants, but later we're going to use variables a lot more. But so these are the basics, and I hope you enjoyed it. The later videos are going to be going in more depth on this.